Good evening. Tonight, I've written you another story about your time as the new Court Necromancer. You'll be able to enjoy this audio if you haven't heard my previous story about your arrival to court. But I'll leave it linked in the description box, just in case. You'll be touring the Necromancy school with the Empress, and I'm very excited for you to begin your adventure. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe so you don't miss any new stories. Take a moment to get comfortable and focus on the sound of my voice. Let's begin. Your eyelids flutter open in your large bed. Sunlight streams in through the windows, kissing the edge of your pillows as you stretch for the ceiling. The indent in your feather mattress is comfortable and deep, and removing yourself from the covers takes considerable effort. The water in your washbasin is warm and scented with citrus. It feels invigorating as you splash your face to remove the cobwebs from sleep. Your risen handmaiden has laid out your outfit for the day, and your eyebrow raises as you see its traveling clothes. There's a note from the Empress as well, dictating that you are to accompany her to the Necromancy school today, as she desires a tour. Your heart catches in your chest. The chance to go back home. The machinations of court have been swift and demanding, so only in the small hours of the night have you had time for something as indulgent as homesickness. The sight of the academy ramparts and the massive, sprawling graveyards are your last thoughts before sleep each night. Your handmaiden takes your stunned silence as an opportunity to begin dressing you. A comfortable, thick velvet choker is wrapped around your neck, jingling softly with rubies and silver filigree. It makes you feel ornate and special. The corset goes on next, snug and secure. It's helped you stand tall and proud during many a session at court, hiding your fatigue from the eyes of nobles. It's dark and curving, with a matching silver filigree twisting through the bones, dotted with rubies that glimmer softly in the early morning light. Your arms are bare save for the gloves which are pulled on. The soft black velvet glides against your skin. Next are the leather pants and high boots, as is the custom for both comfort and a flattering silhouette. Your handmaiden expertly wraps black silk around you, catching it modestly at your waist and finishing it around your shoulders for warmth. Finally, a hood is attached and you admire yourself in the mirror, pulling it up and down and experimenting with how your hair lays outside of it. Your boots click against the stone floors of the palace. The murals and paintings running along the walls are now a familiar sight, as are the faces of the servants who either smile at you or see your dark clothes and give you a wide berth. You feel quite powerful, your dark cape swishing behind you as you walk. The mountain air is bracing and cool against your face when you step outside. The sun is beginning its rise into a cloudless autumn sky. The Empress's carriage attendants bow as you approach. 4 looming caribou stand at attention in front of the royal carriage, baubles of spun glass hanging from their antlers and catching the sunlight like chandeliers. You take small steps towards the footman, feeling the eyes of everyone upon you. The carriage doors are thrown open and you step inside, your black silks swishing around you as you arrange yourself before sitting down. The Empress greets you with a conspirator's grin. She's dressed in cream silks embroidered with peace lilies that bring out the depth and richness of her skin. A modest circlet rests atop the waves of her dark hair, the gems within scattering spots of light within the tiny world of your shared carriage. A plate of fruit and breakfast pastry is laid out beside you, as well as a silver carafe steaming with coffee. There's chocolate croissant and raspberries, lemon danishes the size of coins, and strawberries cut into crowns. The coffee is light and aromatic, your nostrils flaring as you pour your cup and breathe in the wakeful scent. There's the sound of hoofbeats and the carriage lurches forward. Your tiny world shifts as you begin your journey. The carriage interior is done in soft pastels and Baroque molding, everything curling in on itself and swirling, like the wall panels are competing to see who can be the most ornate and decorative. The windows are small but covered in a sheer fabric, and the gaping onlookers when you roll through the capital remind you of your arrival to the palace long ago, when you had butterflies in your stomach. Carriage wheels carry you forward, and the Empress peeks out of the window excitedly. The landscape changes from buildings and stone streets to forests and dirt roads. The two of you chat like the dear friends you've become, but not about work. You talk about the latest fashions at court, which dances you like best, and if your reason for living should be one big reason or several smaller ones. Hours later, the trees become denser and the branches brush against the roof of the carriage. There are only crumbs left on the pastry plate and the coffee has long since been exhausted. You and the Empress had a long, flattering debate about which of you was the prettiest, then fell asleep leaning on each other. The hand mirror you had pulled out for evidence lays forgotten in your lap, until it catches the afternoon sun and causes you to blink awake. The Necromancy school casts a tall shape on the horizon, but before you see it, you feel it. The sensation of massive, sprawling graveyards spreads over you like a warm blanket. You'd almost forgotten the feeling of being surrounded by so many dead. The palace graveyard couldn't compare. It's a mere acre compared to the miles and miles of ancestral deceased at the school. Thousands of bodies beneath the earth, buried in unlocked caskets. The security you feel from knowing they're near should you need them almost causes your eyes to roll back into your head. Your Empress watches with an amused smile on her face, reaching out to touch your arm and pull you out of the feeling of bliss. Then the gates to the school are thrown open, and the royal carriage and caribou roll through. Pointed ramparts cast long shadows across the courtyard. You see students in black clothing moving to and fro between classes, clutching their books to their chests. They turn and stare at your carriage, mouths falling open as they catch sight of the royal emblem on the side, the ornamentation on the caribou horns. Seeing them makes you nostalgic. How long ago was it when you were concerned about grades? Taking tests and long hours studying with friends, preparing embalming practicums. It was all so long ago. The carriage rolls to a halt, and the pageantry that follows is commonplace to you now. You follow after the trains on the Empress's gown, and pleasantries are exchanged with people you know to be important within the school. The Empress is swift with the pleasantries and formalities, and soon the two of you are walking through the school, admiring the paintings and statues from Necromancer's past. You explain to her how art has always been a part of the curriculum. It teaches us that there's always more than one solution to a problem. The sunlight streams in through the windows and warms your face as you answer her questions about embalming and why so many of your kin are poets and sculptors, lovers and academics. It feels good to be home, you realize. You came to the school when you were 8 and were terrified at first. But Risen and children get along famously, and soon your days were filled with friends and schoolwork, learning how best to care for the animated dead who roamed the school grounds, reading and tending to the gardens. The Empress has a gleam in her eye, and as soon as her handlers are out of sight, she takes your hand and sprints down the hallway. Eyes wide, you take off after her, the bookshelves blurring as you run together. She lets out a giggle as you take a sharp corner, and you're not sure you've ever heard her so happy. She asks for directions to the sprawling cemetery, and you give them as you gleefully run. You see a few students smile as they catch sight of you, the Empress and her necromancer, giggling. Then you burst through a pair of heavy doors, and you see nothing but gray tombstones and statues sprawling before you. They eclipse the horizon, growing smaller and smaller until they are only dots meeting the sun. The Empress slows, and your hand feels cold when she lets go of it. She walks through the cemetery, picking up her skirts and heading down the rows of grave markers, looking them over curiously. Is this what she wanted to see? You trail after her like a black shadow, and note her eyebrows knitting together as she sees the marks and symbols beside the grave marker names. There are crowns and animals, arrows and swords in every combination. The symbols indicate who or what they are willing to be raised for, you say. She stops and looks at you, listening. The tilt of her head causes the gems in her crown to catch in the afternoon light, and you remember her title and your position. Your Imperial Grace, you add with a bow. So you tell her how the graves with the crowns mean the deceased said they would be raised in service of her, the Empress. Others indicate they would be raised in the event of a war, and which side they would fight for. The neutrality of the Necromancy School is something you've never discussed, but you explain how war profits the school and makes more of your kind. It's an army, you tell her, gesturing to the cemetery, filled with people who died but believed in something, who wanted to fight for their ideals should the need arise. These marks are not engraved lightly on tombstones. The Empress takes your hand again and you walk, feeling the dead and looking at the names and the marks. You spent many hours studying here as a student, but the marks and symbols meant little to you. You were more interested in the names on the grave markers, the dates. But seeing your Empress look them over with a smile on her face, something unwinds in her expression, and she squeezes your hand as if in reassurance. She says she needed to see this, to witness firsthand the cemetery of the ideal dead, gone but prepared to fight for her. The two of you wander the cemetery until the sun sinks low, saying nothing and contemplating each other. Eventually you wander back, and the rest of the formalities of her visit go smoothly. The evening passes in a blur of bows and necromantic theory. You see the students casting admiring glances your way, and you're all too happy to flash them a smile when you can. The memory of your stolen cemetery walk stays with you all evening, throughout the fine food, dancing, and academic debate about the finer points of raising the dead. It's a blur of festivities and wine, and you drank deeply from the headmaster's private bar. Climbing back into the carriage afterwards feels like relief, and you sink into the cushions with a happy sigh. When the footman announces you will make for home, your eyes close, and you drift off to the sound of rolling wheels and caribou hoofbeats. The Empress thanks you softly, touching your hand before sleep claims you. The end. Thank you for listening to my story. The stories about you as a necromancer are truly some of my favorite to write, and I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate you listening to me. Though if you're hearing me now, you're still awake, and I'm sorry for that. Do you think another story would help? I'll leave 2 more linked after this video. Please be gentle with yourself, and take care. Good night.